It was built by a woman who spent her entire life eluding ghosts. There was no blueprint used when building it, and it has been the subject of many books and movies, my favorite of which is Rose Red by Stephen King. In case you didn't know by now, today we're talking about the story of the Winchester Mystery House. Hey guys, what's up? I'm so glad you came back for another ghost story and makeup. I'm Kira Shanae, and today we're going to talk about the Winchester Mystery House, which is one of my all-time favorite spooky places. So Sarah Winchester was married to William Winchester, who was the creator of the Winchester Repeating Rifle. At the time of its inception, the Winchester Repeating Rifle was one of the deadliest weapons of war available. Now, Sarah and William lived in New Haven, Connecticut, and eventually had a daughter. And that's kind of where Sarah's trauma starts. See, Sarah and William's daughter ended up dying shortly after her birth of a childhood illness called marasmus, which essentially wastes away the body until the person who has the disease dies. So, as if that weren't enough trauma for poor Sarah, shortly after her daughter's death, William ended up dying of tuberculosis. The deaths of Sarah's husband and her daughter left her the sole heir to the Winchester fortune. So Sarah inherited $20.5 million, today's equivalent being $550 million. $550 million. But Sarah was really tormented, and being the spiritualist that she was, she went to see a psychic to see what she should do after the deaths. The psychic claimed to be channeling William Winchester and told Sarah that she absolutely had to move west and begin construction on a house for both her and the deceased souls of those who had been stricken down by the Winchester rifle. Sarah did not take that warning lightly, and so in 1884, she moved to San Jose, California, where she bought an 8-room farmhouse and began construction immediately. Now, that construction would last more than 30 years, and it would lead to one of architecture's most confusing designs. And if you're familiar with the Winchester Mystery House, you know where we're going from here, okay? At this point, Sarah was convinced that she was being haunted by the people who fell victim to the Winchester rifle, and the only way to elude them was to continuously build, which is exactly what the psychic said. So obviously, Miss Sarah had a lot of belief in what she had been told. So carpenters were hired, and the construction on the house began. And that construction lasted all day and all night for the entire duration of the construction of the Winchester mansion. Built according to Sarah's specific designs, so there was no actual architectural blueprint to the house. It was just shit that Sarah thought up in order to get away from the spooks that were haunting her. And ultimately, Sarah's desire to outsmart the ghosts ended with the mansion being 7 stories tall. The odd conglomerate of designs, specifically made by Sarah, included 160 rooms, 40 of which were bedrooms, 10,000 windows, 47 fireplaces, and 2 basements. The mansion also had some super unusual amenities for the time, which included indoor plumbing and a hot shower used only by Sarah. Now, pardon me while I gag on that tea, but I can't even imagine living without indoor plumbing and a hot shower. But this was normal at the time. People balked it was in her house. Let's paint a what the fuck eyebrow. Truly, though, in the Winchester mansion, the bizarre is abundant. Housed inside the Winchester mansion is both beauty and disaster. Inside the mansion are staircases that lead to the ceiling, as well as smaller staircases that were installed later in Sarah's life to accommodate for her arthritis. These staircases are little bitty, teeny tiny, short little steps so that she could lift her feet onto them because she could barely move. This may have been a mistake. I kind of feel like I'm going to look like a watermelon when I'm done. There are also doors inside the mansion that lead to nowhere, or they could lead to a sudden drop-off either inside or outside of the home. See, there's one door that leads to an 8-foot drop directly into a kitchen sink, one of 6 kitchens, as well as another door that leads to a 15-foot drop outside into bushes in the garden. I guess the theory could have been that if ghosts were busy plummeting into weird objects, that they didn't have time to chase Sarah around the house. The Winchester Mystery House also has more secret passages than Narnia. One of them is a cupboard that opens into a passageway that goes through 30 of the rooms inside the mansion. Now, it's said that Sarah used those passageways to get around while she was trying to avoid her spiritual guests. I guess a confused ghost is better than an angry ghost, but if I were the ghost, off that I couldn't find my way around. Now, inside the walls of the mansion, one could also find a series of stained glass windows. One of the windows happened to be designed by Tiffany and Company, hello, Cash, and it's said that when light hits the window, it creates a prism that reflects a rainbow into the room. Now, unfortunately for us, due to Sarah's genius, it is actually placed in the interior of the house where it never ever sees sunlight. So no one will ever see the rainbow that it actually projects. And isn't it a shame that vintage Tiffany is being kept hidden in the dark? And now seances were also hugely popular inside the mansion because Sarah used them as a means to communicate with and understand the dead. Now, in 1906, there was a massive earthquake that did a ton of damage to the mansion. It actually affected the top 3 stories the most, and those come tumbling down onto the lower 4 stories. But because Sarah was who she was, she just decided to rebuild, remodel, and renovate until the mansion was back to its former glory. However, after it was rebuilt, it was left to be 4 stories instead of the full 7 that it had originally been. But despite all of that building and renovation, Sarah was still tormented by the thoughts of these poor souls, and it's said that she actually slept in a different bedroom every single night just to confuse anybody who might be looking for her. Now, the house was still under construction in 1922 when Sarah passed away, sadly. Her niece essentially came into the house, took anything that she wanted or that she thought was worth something, and took off. And then the mansion was sold not 5 months after Sarah passed away in 1923. Eventually, it was opened as a sort of museum. Well, I get that's a lot of history, but it's totally necessary to talk about the rumored hauntings that occur inside the Winchester mansion. One rumored haunting includes the apparition of a man with a mustache, a hat, and white overalls who's frequently seen pushing a wheelbarrow and fixing the fireplace inside the ballroom. That apparition's name is Clyde, and he's actually one of Sarah's former workers. There are also rumors about skirts and shirts being gently tugged during tours, and a man that works for the museum named Denny has chased phantom footsteps all the way to the roof only to find no one making them. As I'm sure is obvious by now, the place is still open and available for tours whenever your ghostly little heart decides to go hunting. Well, that's it for the Winchester Mystery House. Let me put on some eyelashes and I'll be right back with your final look. All right, you guys, I'm back and this is your final look. Do you like it? I'm loving it. Anyway, you guys, I hope that you had fun. I hope you'll come back and see me next time. Remember to always love yourselves, always be a unicorn, and I'll see you next time. Bye!